A millionaire spots his childhood sweetheart begging with twin toddlers and recognizes her, but his next move shocks everyone. Enjoy the story, everyone. Ethan Hartley, a cutthroat tycoon, was navigating a bustling intersection when a sight stopped him cold. A woman in tattered clothes, hair matted and face etched with exhaustion, sat on the sidewalk. Beside her, two 4-year-old girls, twins in frayed dresses, huddled close. One wept silently, rubbing grimy fists over her eyes. "It's all right, love. Someone will help us soon," the woman whispered, stroking the child's hair with trembling hands, her voice frayed by desperation. Ethan's chest tightened. He knew that face, even beneath the grime and sorrow. It couldn't be, but it was. Clara Dawson, his first love. The girl he'd pined for in high school, who'd barely noticed him except to laugh at his shy attempts to flirt. Now here she was, shattered and helpless. He approached slowly, pulse racing. "Clara," he called hesitantly. The woman lifted her head, eyes widening in recognition. Ethan star. A heavy silence fell between them, thick with unspoken history. Clara dropped her gaze as if wishing to vanish. "What happened to you?" Ethan asked, unable to mask his concern. Clara turned away, clutching the girls tighter. "It doesn't matter. We're fine. Just leave." But Ethan couldn't unsee it. One twin whimpered from hunger, the other clung to her mother's sleeve, staring at him with wide, fearful eyes. The scene gutted him. "You're not fine. Come with me. I'll help you." "No, I can't. I'm not leaving you and your daughters here." "You're coming. Now." The girls studied him warily, the crying one stifling her sobs. Clara hesitated, but Ethan's steel resolve broke her resistance. She had no choice. Ethan summoned his driver. "Be here in 5. He pocketed his phone. "Let's go." He offered his hand. Reluctantly, Clara took it. When the car arrived, Ethan helped Clara inside, carrying one twin while she held the other. The girls slumped against their mother, exhausted, as they drove to Ethan's estate. The ride was suffocatingly quiet. Clara stared blankly out the window, while Ethan stole glances, piecing together how her life had unraveled. At the mansion, Clara flinched at its opulence, manicured gardens, glowing windows, a world alien to her. "You don't have to do this, Ethan. We can. No arguments. You're staying. Eat. Rest." The housekeeper, Ms. Whitlock, opened the door, startled but silent. Ethan directed her to prepare rooms while he led Clara and the twins to the living room. He lit the fireplace, its warmth softening the tension, and ordered food. "Thank you, really," Clara murmured, tears pooling as the girls drowsed on the sofa. Ethan nodded, mind racing. Tonight was just the beginning. Sunlight filtered through the estate's windows, but Clara was already awake, perched on the edge of the bed. Her twins, Lily and Luna, slept soundly beside her, warm and safe for the first time in years. The relief should have calmed her, but dread coiled in her throat. Across the mansion, Ethan sat in his study, replaying the previous night. Clara's hollow eyes, the twins' fragility, it haunted him. The girl he'd once idolized, reduced to this. He needed answers. A soft knock interrupted Clara's thought. "Miss Dawson." "Breakfast is ready," Ms. Whitlock called. Clara roused the girls, and minutes later, they descended to a dining room laden with pastries, fruit, and fresh juice. The twins darted to the table, marveling at the feast. Clara lingered awkwardly until Ethan appeared in the doorway, crisp in a charcoal sweater. "Please," he said gently, though his gaze held gravity. Clara obliged, watching Lily and Luna devour strawberries and muffins. Silence hung between her and Ethan, broken only by the clink of cutlery. When the girls finished, Ms. Whitlock ushered them to a playroom, leaving Clara alone with Ethan. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Clara, what happened?" She stiffened, fingers knotting in her lap. "It's not a happy story. I'm not here to judge. I want to help." He paused, choosing his words. "What you've endured, it doesn't happen overnight." Clara inhaled sharply, closing her eyes. "After graduation, I dated." "You remember him?" Ethan's jaw twitched. Of course he did, golden boy who tormented him in school. "He got serious after prom. I thought he loved me," Clara continued, voice brittle. "Then I got pregnant. And I told him, he left. That he wasn't ready to be a father. My parents couldn't help much. I lost my job, then our apartment. We've been on the streets since the girls turned 2. Ethan's fists clenched under the table. "Why didn't you ask for help?" she whispered. "I didn't want anyone, especially you, to see me like this." Ethan leaned back, struggling to temper his anger. "You're not alone anymore. I'll help you rebuild." "Why?" The question hung between them, raw and unflinching. He hesitated, then met her gaze. "'Cause I've always cared, even when you didn't notice." Clara froze, his words unraveling her defenses. At night, as she tucked the twins into bed, hope and fear warred within her. Accepting his help meant surrendering control, but for Lily and Luna, she tried. The next morning, sunlight spilled into Clara's room as Lily and Luna giggled on the rug, their laughter pulling her from sleep. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until the plush blankets and polished furniture reminded her. 24 hours ago, she'd been shivering on concrete. Now, fresh clothes lay folded on the dresser, courtesy of Ms. Whitlock. Downstairs, Ethan waited in the living room, reviewing documents. He glanced up as the twins bounded in, his stern demeanor softening. "Sleep well?" he asked. Lily nodded vigorously, while Luna hid shyly behind Clara. "Better than we have in years," Clara admitted, gratitude threading her voice. Ethan motioned for them to sit. "Rest today. The girls can explore the gardens." Clara hesitated. "Ethan, I need to find work soon. I can't keep taking." He raised a hand. "No timelines. Focus on healing first." After breakfast, Clara lingered in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes to quiet her guilt. Ethan found her, shaking his head. "You don't owe chores." "I need to feel useful," she insisted. Later, he whisked them downtown to a boutique. Twins gasped at racks of dresses and shoes. "Can I really have this, Mama?" Lily begged, clutching a sequined skirt. Clara's throat tightened. "Yes, darling." Luna shyly held up tiny sneakers. "Me too." "Of course." Ethan watched, silent but pleased, as the girls marveled at their new belongings. At lunch, their chatter filled the restaurant, a stark contrast to the hollow silence of street corners. "Thank you," Clara murmured. "For giving them this." Ethan shrugged. "They deserve it." "You do." Clara looked away, shame prickling. "I don't. I wasn't kind to you before." "The past stays there," he said firmly. That evening, as the twins raced through the garden in new clothes, Clara stood at the window, a fragile peace settling over her. Ethan joined her, his presence steady. "They're remarkable," he said softly. "They're my reason to keep fighting." Ethan met her gaze. "And they're thriving." Weeks slipped into a rhythm. Mornings found Clara studying in the sunlit office Ethan had arranged, while Lily and Luna played in the garden. Initially, textbooks overwhelmed her, but Ethan's encouragement, subtle yet steadfast, anchored her resolve. One afternoon, Ethan entered with a folder, his expression earnest. "I've been thinking, what if you finished your education? I'll cover everything. Girls will be cared for." Clara gaped. "Ethan, I can't ask for more." "You're not asking. I'm offering. This isn't charity. It's an investment in your future." Pride warred with pragmatism. That night, as Luna and Lily slept, Clara traced their peaceful faces. For them, she decided. Days later, Ethan handed her a leather-bound journal. "For your goals. Write them. We'll achieve them together." Clara's throat tightened. "Thank you," she managed, the gesture thawing her guarded heart. But shadows lingered. One evening, Ethan revealed he admitted abandoning you. "Didn't ask about the girls." Clara's fists clenched. Why confront him? Close the wound. Later, alone, Clara dialed. His voice, cold and detached, crushed lingering hopes. "I've moved on. You should too." Call ended. Clara crumpled, grief and rage colliding, until Ethan found her. "He doesn't define you," he murmured, grounding her with his quiet strength. Weeks later, Ethan proposed a role at his firm. Project coordinator. Flexible hours. A chance to apply what you're learning. Clara hesitated. "What if I fail?" "You won't." She accepted. At work, challenges mounted, but each small victory, a praised report, a streamlined task, rekindled her confidence. Meanwhile, Lily and Luna blossomed, laughter echoing through halls, art plastering fridge doors. Ethan often joined their tea parties, his stern exterior melting as Luna crowned him with tiaras. One evening, Clara discovered Ethan teaching the twins chess. "Checkmate," Lily declared, giggling as Ethan feigned defeat. Clara's heart swelled. Later, over wine, Ethan confessed, "You've changed everything here." "You gave us a lifeline," she replied, their eyes locking, unspoken truths hovering. But as autumn leaves fell, Clara faced a crossroads: embrace this fragile new life or let past fears sabotage it. Now, she chose hope. Winter's first frost dusted the estate's gardens as Clara stood by the window, watching Lily and Luna build a lopsided snowman. Their laughter echoed through the glass, a sound she'd once feared she'd never hear again. Behind her, Ethan cleared his throat, holding 2 steaming mugs of cocoa. "They'll catch cold," he said, though his smile betrayed his amusement. Clara accepted the drink, their fingers brushing. "They're happier here than I've ever seen them." Ethan's gaze lingered on her. "You?" The question hung, fragile as ice. Clara hesitated. "I'm getting there." Weeks prior, Ethan had offered her a permanent role at his company, a leap of trust that had terrified her. Now, after months of study and late-night strategizing, she'd earned her team's respect. Even Ms. Whitlock had softened, slipping the girls extra cookies when Clara worked late. One evening, after tucking the twins in, Clara found Ethan in the study, firelight gilding his profile. "I never thanked you properly," she began, voice unsteady. "Seeing me when I couldn't see myself." Ethan set aside his papers. "You did the hard work. I just wanted you to have the chance." Silence stretched, charged and tender. Clara stepped closer, heart drumming. "Ethan, I..." He stood abruptly, closing the distance between them. "Clara, I..." His hand grazed her cheek, tentative. "I need you to know that this isn't about pity or debt. It's you." Her breath hitched. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Oh, am I?" The confession hung between them, raw, honest. Then Ethan leaned in, brushing his lips against hers, a question more than a kiss. Clara answered by deepening it, years of loneliness and longing dissolving into warmth. When they parted, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "No rush," he murmured. "We'll take this as slow as you need." Outside, snowflakes swirled, blanketing the world in quiet possibility. And he began, "There's something I've wanted to say for a while but I wasn't sure how." Clara leaned forward slightly, her heart starting to race. "What is it? I deeply admire your strength and resilience, but I can see that you're still carrying a lot of guilt. I think it's time for you to let it go." She looked away, his words striking a sensitive chord. "Ethan, I know I've made a lot of mistakes in the past. I made choices that brought me here, and sometimes I feel like I don't deserve the life you're offering me." Ethan shook his head. "No one is perfect, Clara. We all make mistakes, but you've been doing everything you can to overcome your challenges. You deserve this, and so much more." His words felt like a soothing balm on wounds she had hidden for so long. Clara took a deep breath, realizing it was time to confront her insecurities. "Ethan, I've never apologized for how I treated you when we were younger. I was selfish and immature. And I didn't see the value of the people around me. I hurt you, and I'm sorry for that." Ethan was silent for a moment, taking in her words. Finally he said, "Clara, the past doesn't matter anymore. We've both changed, and what matters now is what we're building together. I forgive you, and I hope you can forgive yourself." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, but this time they weren't from sadness. It felt as if a tremendous weight was being lifted from her shoulders. She looked at Ethan, who met her gaze with calm understanding. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything. You don't need to thank me. I'm here because I want to be." That moment marked the start of a new chapter for them. The tension from the past began to fade, and they both felt they could finally open up to each other fully. In the days that followed, Clara noticed a lightness in her heart she hadn't felt in years. She threw herself into her work and studies with renewed enthusiasm, while Ethan continued to support her every step of the way. One evening, after putting the twins to bed, Clara found Ethan in the garden, sitting in one of the rocking chairs. The soft moonlight illuminated his face, and he seemed lost in thought. "Are you okay?" Clara asked, sitting beside him. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, I was just thinking about how much has changed. I remember when I saw you that night on the sidewalk. I never imagined we'd end up here." "Neither did I," Clara admitted, "but I'm glad it happened." "Me too." The silence between them was comfortable, as though words weren't necessary. Ethan looked at Clara, the gentle glow of the moon reflecting in her eyes. He knew he was falling for her, but he didn't want to rush anything. "Clara, do you believe in second chances?" he asked, breaking the silence. She smiled, pondering his question. "I think I'm starting to." Ethan nodded, encouraged by her response. He knew they were heading towards something special, something both of them needed, but only time could solidify it. The next morning Ethan decided to plan a surprise for Clara and the twins. He arranged a small trip to a nearby farm where they could spend the day outdoors, away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Lily and Luna were ecstatic when they heard the idea, and Clara, though surprised, was grateful for the chance to spend meaningful time with her daughters and Ethan. The day was filled with laughter and unforgettable moments. The girls fed the farm animals, ran through the fields, and enjoyed homemade ice cream. Clara, meanwhile, felt more connected to Ethan than ever before. He seemed completely at ease, interacting with the twins as if he had always been part of their family. At the end of the day, as they drove home, Lily and Luna were fast asleep in the back seat, exhausted but happy. Clara watched Ethan as he drove silently, a slight smile on his face. "Thank you for today," she said softly. "There's no need to thank me. It was a special day for all of us." "Yes, it was, and it meant so much to me to see the girls so happy. This is just the beginning. There are many more moments like this ahead of us." She smiled, warmed by his words. For the first time in years she believed the future could be bright. When they arrived at the house, Ethan carried the twins to their room, making sure they were comfortable before turning off the lights. Clara stood nearby, moved by the care and dedication he showed that night. As she lay in bed, Clara felt ready to finally let go of the past. Ethan was right, second chances did exist, and she wouldn't waste the one she had been given. Mornings at Ethan's mansion were now filled with life. Lily and Luna ran through the house laughing and filling the space with contagious joy. Ethan, who had once lived a quiet life focused solely on work, found himself increasingly involved in the twins' routines and more importantly in Clara's growth. One morning Clara was getting ready to leave. Ethan had invited her to accompany him to an important meeting, an opportunity to observe how he handled negotiations and led his team. Though excited, she was also nervous. She didn't want to make any mistakes or feel out of place. "Are you ready?" Ethan asked, waiting for her by the entrance. "More or less. I hope I don't mess up." "You'll do great, Clara. Trust yourself." When they arrived at the company building, Clara was impressed by its grandeur. Ethan guided her to the meeting room where several executives were already gathered. He introduced her as a promising collaborator, which made her feel both proud and slightly self-conscious. During the meeting, Clara listened attentively, absorbing every detail. Ethan encouraged her to share some of her ideas, and to her surprise her suggestions were well received. "You have a very clear perspective," one of the executives commented. "Thank you. I'm still learning, but I'm glad I could contribute," Clara replied with a modest smile. Ethan watched the interaction with satisfaction. He had always known Clara was capable, but seeing others recognize her abilities was even more rewarding. After the meeting, Ethan took her to a nearby cafe. They sat at an outdoor table and Clara, now relaxed, ordered a cappuccino. "You are amazing today," Ethan said, taking a sip of his coffee. "I was so nervous," she admitted, "but it was exciting to be part of it. This is just the beginning. You're building something solid." Clara, she looked at him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "None of this would be possible without you, Ethan. You believed in me, and I couldn't believe in myself. All I did was show you the way. The credit is all yours." Their moment was interrupted by a call from the housekeeper, letting Clara know that Lily and Luna were asking for her. Ethan smiled. "Looks like your little ones miss you. They're attached. They can't stay away for long," Clara said with a laugh. When they returned home, the twins ran to their mother, hugging her tightly. Ethan watched the scene, feeling an ever-deepening connection with the girls he loved, their boundless energy and how their laughter could brighten any space. Later that afternoon, Ethan decided to organize a small picnic in the garden. Lily and Luna were thrilled, helping to pack a basket with sandwiches, fruit and juice. Clara sat on a blanket spread out on the lawn, watching the girls run around with Ethan. "You're getting more and more comfortable with them," Clara said as Ethan sat down beside her. "They're incredible kids. It's impossible not to grow attached. Thank you for being so good to them, Ethan. They feel safe and happy here, and that's all I've ever wanted." Ethan smiled. "They part of you, Clara, and for me that's enough." His words touched Clara deeply, and she felt her heart race. She knew her feelings for Ethan went beyond gratitude, but the fear of fully opening her heart still held her back. As night fell, Lily and Luna finally grew tired and fell asleep in their mother's arms. Ethan helped Clara carry them to their room, and together they carefully tucked the girls in. As they stepped out into the hallway, Clara paused, looking at Ethan. "You've changed our lives. You know that you've changed mine too." "Oh." The intensity in Ethan's gaze made her feel vulnerable yet safe. At the same time, she knew she could no longer ignore what she was feeling. Later that evening, while Clara was in the kitchen preparing a cup of tea, Ethan walked in. He stood silently for a moment, watching her before stepping closer. "Clara, there's something I need to say." She turned to face him, her heart beating faster. "What is it?" Ethan hesitated briefly but decided to be honest. "Since you came here, my life has completely changed. You and the girls have brought something into my world that I didn't even realize was missing. I care about you, Clara, far more than I can put into words." His words washed over Clara like a wave, catching her off guard. For a moment she didn't know how to respond, but then she smiled, her eyes glistening. "Ethan, I care about you too. But all of this, it's still so new to me. I need time." Ethan nodded, respecting her honesty. "I understand, Stan. I'm not asking you to rush. I just wanted you to know how I feel." Their moment was interrupted by a faint noise from upstairs. Lily had woken up and was calling for her mother. Clara smiled and went to tend to her, leaving Ethan alone in the kitchen. He sighed, looking at the abandoned teacup on the counter. Winning Clara's complete trust would take time, but he was willing to wait. What he felt for her and the girls was worth every moment of patience. In the days that followed, the relationship between Ethan and Clara continued to grow, marked by small yet meaningful moments. With each passing day, Clara felt herself opening up to him more, while Ethan remained patient, giving her the space she needed to heal and trust. There was still a long journey ahead, but both were ready to face whatever came their way together. The sky over New York was covered in thick clouds, signaling an impending storm. Clara was in Ethan's office, reviewing the reports he had asked her to work on. She felt more confident in her abilities now, but she still approached each task with the seriousness of someone who understood how much this job meant for her new life. Ethan walked into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. He placed one beside Clara and sat across from her, observing her in silence for a moment before speaking. "You're doing really well, you know that." Clara looked up, surprised by his casual tone. "I'm trying, but I still feel like there's room for improvement. You're hard on yourself, and that's a good trait, but I want you to know I'm proud of everything you're accomplishing. Her cheeks flushed slightly and she turned her gaze back to the computer screen. Ethan's compliment felt like more than just professional praise. There was a warmth in his voice that she couldn't ignore. Time seemed to pass quickly as their bond deepened. Naturally, Ethan always found ways to show he cared, whether through small gestures or words that made Clara feel special. On her end, she noticed herself gradually lowering the protective walls she had built, though she still kept a subtle guard up. One night after the twins had gone to bed, Ethan suggested Olivia join him on the mansion's terrace. She hesitated but let her curiosity guide her. When they arrived, Clara was struck by the view. The city lights shimmered like stars and the cool night air carried a calmness that contrasted with New York's usual bustling. Ethan stood beside her, quietly admiring the way her eyes reflected the city's glow. I used to come up here when I needed to think, he finally said. But lately I don't feel that need anymore. I think it's because I found something that brings me more peace. Clara turned to him, sensing there was more behind his words. What brings you that peace, Ethan? You, he said without hesitation. His words took her by surprise, and for a moment she was speechless. Ethan took a step closer, lessening the distance between them. From the moment I saw you that night, something inside me changed. And as we've spent more time together, I've realized that what I feel for you is unlike anything I've ever experienced. Clara's heart raced. She knew her feelings for growing, but hearing his confession out loud made everything feel more real. Ethan, this is all so new for me. I'm still trying to find my footing, to be strong for myself and the girls. I'm not asking you to rush, Clara. I just want you to know how I feel. She took a deep breath, looking into his eyes. There was a sincerity there that she couldn't ignore, and for the first time in years she felt like it might be safe to open her heart again. I feel something for you too, Logan, but I need time. I need to be sure I'm ready to move forward. Ethan nodded, respecting her hesitation. I'd wait as long as it takes. Their moment was interrupted by the distant rumble of thunder, signaling an approaching storm. Clara looked toward the horizon, feeling the cool breeze on her face. We should head inside before it starts raining, she suggested. Ethan agreed, but the light in his eyes made it clear that this conversation had changed something between them. In the days that followed, the atmosphere between Clara and Ethan grew more emotionally charged. There was a subtle tension in their interactions, as if both were trying to find a balance between the personal and professional. One evening, Ethan decided to surprise Clara with a special dinner. He asked the housekeeper to look after the twins and personally prepared a meal for the two of them. When Clara came downstairs and saw the elegantly set table, she was speechless. You did all this? She asked in disbelief. I wanted to do something special for you, he replied with a smile. During dinner they talked about everything: work, childhood memories, dreams for the future. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and they felt increasingly comfortable in each other's presence. I never imagined I'd be here with this chance to start over, Clara said, reflecting, and if it weren't for you, Ethan, I don't know where we'd be now. You'd be somewhere fighting like you always have. I just had the privilege of helping, but it was more than that. You believed in me when no one else did. That makes all the difference. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. I'll always believe in you, Clara, always. His touch was warm and reassuring, and Clara felt the walls she had built over the years begin to crumble. She knew she still had her fears, but she also knew Ethan was unlike anyone she had ever met. When dinner ended, Ethan walked her to her bedroom door. For a moment they stood in silence, just looking at each other. Good night, Ethan, Clara said softly with a gentle smile. Good night, Clara. As she closed the door she leaned against it, feeling her heart race. For the first time in years she allowed herself to imagine a future where she wasn't alone. Ethan meanwhile walked down the stairs with a smile on his face. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to take every step needed to win Clara's heart completely. That night, as the rain finally began to fall, they both fell asleep with a new sense of hope, as if the future was starting to reveal itself. Clara and Ethan's daily lives began to flow with a surprising ease that caught them both off guard. The twins were growing increasingly attached to Ethan, and he in turn showed genuine affection for them. Yet Ethan still had moments of doubt, not about her feelings, but about whether she was ready to fully trust someone again. One afternoon, while Clara was working on reports in the office, her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, she saw a photo of Ethan been talking to an elegant woman at a restaurant. The caption read, "Do you really know who he is?" Clara's heart raced. While she knew Logan had a social life and professional contacts, the message unsettled her. The doubt she had tried to push away came rushing back. Who was that woman, and why would someone send her a message like that? Ethan arrived home later that day, seemingly at ease. He found Clara in the living room with the twin playing nearby. He immediately noticed something was wrong. "Are you okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. Clara hesitated for a moment before showing him the message. "I got this today." Ethan frowned as he looked at the image. "That was a business meeting. She's a consultant we hiring for a project." Clara wanted to believe him, but the message had cast a shadow over her trust. "Why would someone send this to me, Ethan? It feels like they're trying to warn me about something I don't know, but I can find out." "Clara, you have to trust me. I would never do anything to hurt you." His voice was steady and his tone carried genuine sincerity. Clara looked into his eyes and saw something she couldn't ignore: the transparency of someone with nothing to hide. "I want to trust you, Ethan, but this caught me off guard. My whole life has been filled with disappointments and it's hard to ignore that fear." Ethan gently held her hands, giving them a reassuring squeeze. "I understand, Clara. I won't pressure you. I just want you to know that I'm here to face anything by your side." In the days that followed, Ethan investigated the source of the message and discovered it had been sent by a disgruntled former employee he had let go months ago. He showed Clara the evidence, making it clear there was nothing to fear. Clara felt a mix of relief and guilt. She knew she was still learning to trust, but she also realized that Ethan was willing to do whatever it took to ensure her total security. One night, after putting the twins to bed, went to Ethan's office. He was focused on some documents, but looked up as she entered. "Can we talk?" she asked, closing the door behind her. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Clara sat in the chair across from his desk and took a deep breath. "I want to apologize for doubting you. I know the message shook me, but that doesn't excuse my lack of trust. You've always been honest with me and I need to be fair to you." Ethan gave her a soft smile. "You don't need to apologize, Clara. I know how hard it is for you to let your guard down. I'm here to help, not to judge." His words struck a chord and Ethan felt tears well up in her eyes. "You're so different from anything I've ever known, Ethan. It scares me, but it also makes me want to believe I can be happy again." Ethan stood and walked over to her, kneeling by her side. He gently wiped away a tear that had fallen down her cheek. "You can be happy, Clara, and you don't have to do it alone." That night something shifted between them. The walls Clara had kept up for so long finally began to crumble. The days that followed were filled with increasingly meaningful moments of closeness. Ethan continued to show patience and care while Clara slowly allowed herself to trust him completely. One afternoon, as they strolled through the park with Lily and Luna, Ethan watched Clara playing with the girls. In that moment he felt an unshakable certainty. This was the life he wanted. He wanted to be with her and the twins forever. When they returned home, Ethan asked the housekeeper to watch the girls for a few hours. He took Clara to the mansion's terrace, the same spot where they had shared a pivotal conversation months earlier. "Clara, there's something I want to say." She looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a delicate ring. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you and the girls. You've brought light and joy into my life in a way I never thought possible. Clara, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she covered her mouth in shock. "Ethan, yes, I will." Logan smiled as he slipped the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a tight embrace. The storm that had defined the start of their journey had finally passed and they were ready to begin a new chapter together. As the twins slept peacefully in the next room, Clara and Ethan talked about their future plans, a simple wedding full of love and a life built on the trust and respect they had worked so hard to achieve. That night was only the beginning of a journey filled with happy moments and challenges they would face together as a true family. Preparations for Clara and Ethan's wedding began simply but with great meaning for both of them. Clara wanted an intimate ceremony surrounded only by those who were part of her new life. Lily and Luna were thrilled at the idea of being flower girls and Ethan involved them in every detail, from choosing flowers to picking out dresses. Despite the joy that filled every moment, Clara knew she still had to confront one last ghost from her past. While she had accepted that Jeff, the twins' biological father, would never take responsibility, she felt she needed to face him one final time. "Ethan, I need to talk to Jeff again," Clara said one evening while they were on the terrace. Ethan frowned, concerned. "Do you think that's really necessary?" "Yes, not for him, but for me. I need to close this chapter once and for all." Ethan took her hand, his eyes full of understanding. "If that's what you need, I'll be by your side." Next day Ethan managed to find Jeff's address. Clara decided to meet him alone, but she felt reassured knowing Ethan was just a phone call away. When she arrived, she found Jeff standing outside a small bar, visibly worn down by time and the choices he had made in life. "Clara," he said, surprised to see her. "Yes, it's me. We need to talk." Jeff sighed and gestured for her to follow him to a table in the corner. He looked uneasy, as though hoping this wouldn't take long. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice tired. "I'm here to tell you I don't expect anything from you anymore. You made your choice years ago, but the girls deserve to know that I did everything I could to give them the best, and now I'm moving on." Jeff sat in silence staring at the empty glass in front of him. I know I failed Clara, but I don't know how to be a father. I never did. That doesn't matter anymore. They have someone who loves them as if they were his own. Ethan is everything you never were and never will be. Jeff didn't reply, but the look in his eyes showed he understood the weight of her words. Clara stood up feeling she had finally said everything she needed to. As she left the bar she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. When she got home she found Ethan in the yard with the twins helping them set up a play tent. How did it go? He asked as she approached. It went the way it needed to. Now I'm truly ready to move on. Ethan smiled and pulled her into a hug. I'm proud of you. In the days that followed Clara focused entirely on wedding preparations and her new life with Ethan and the girls. She finally felt she had found a home, not just in a physical sense but in the love she shared with Ethan and the laughter of Lily and Luna on the morning of the wedding. Clara was nervous but radiant, wearing an elegant white dress. She looked at herself in the mirror thinking about how much her life had changed. The twins, dressed like little princesses, burst into the room holding flower bouquets. You look beautiful, Mommy, Lily said, her eyes shining. Thank you, my darlings, you both look stunning too. With her heart full of emotion Clara walked down the aisle where Ethan was waiting. Their eyes met and in that moment all her doubts vanished. The wedding was simple but filled with love and meaning. Every word in their vows reaffirmed the bond they had built, not just as a couple but as a united family. When the ceremony ended Lily and Luna ran into Clara and Ethan's arms squealing with joy. The future that once seemed uncertain was now a promise of happiness and togetherness. After the wedding Ethan's mansion felt even more alive. Lily and Luna quickly adapted to the idea of having a complete family and Clara felt she had finally found her place in the world. Their days were filled with laughter and tender moments as she and Ethan built their new routine together. On her first morning as a married couple Clara woke to the sound of birds outside the garden. She turned to find Ethan beside her watching her with a peaceful smile. Good morning, Mrs. Walker, she smiled, still adjusting to her new last name. Good morning, ready to start our new life? More than ready. The first months of their marriage were filled with gratitude and renewal. Ethan supported Clara in balancing her work and studies while continuing to be a dedicated father figure. To Lily and Luna he made it a point to be present for every important moment in the girls' lives, from small school achievements to bedtime stories. One afternoon while organizing some paperwork in the office Clara began feeling lightheaded. Assuming it was just fatigue she decided to rest, however the symptoms persisted over the following days. Ethan noticed her exhaustion and insisted she see a doctor. It's just exhaustion, Ethan. I'm fine, she said, trying to reassure him. It might be, but it won't hurt to check. I want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Reluctantly Clara agreed and scheduled an appointment. She felt a bit anxious but didn't expect any major news. However, after the routine exams the doctor delivered news that would once again change their lives. Congratulations, Mrs. Walker, you're pregnant. Clara sat in silence for a moment processing what she had just heard. Pregnant? The thought of having the child with Ethan filled her with both joy and surprise. When she returned home she found Ethan in the living room playing with Lily and Luna. His smile reassured her that this was the perfect moment to share the news. Ethan, can we talk for a moment? He noticed the seriousness in her tone and asked the girls to go play in their room. Once they were alone Ethan stepped closer, curious. What is it, Clara? She took a deep breath trying to hold back her emotions. Ethan, I went to the doctor today and I found out I'm pregnant. For a moment Ethan was silent, processing her words, then a huge smile lit up his face. You're pregnant? She nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, we're going to have a baby. Ethan pulled her into a tight embrace, his heart overflowing with joy. This is amazing, Clara, I don't even know what to say. The following weeks were filled with excitement as they began preparing for the new addition to their family. Lily and Luna were thrilled at the news that they would have a baby brother or sister and eagerly helped Clara pick out clothes and decorate the nursery. One quiet evening as they watched the twins sleeping Ethan and Clara reflected on everything they had overcome to reach this moment. It feels like we've been through so much in such a short time, Clara said, gently caressing her growing belly, and every challenge brought us to this. I'm happier than I ever thought I could be. Clara smiled, grateful to have Ethan by her side despite all the hardships they had faced. They knew they were now building a life filled with love and hope. The pregnancy brought the family even closer together. Ethan was attentive, always ensuring Clara was comfortable, while Lily and Luna could hardly wait for their little brother to arrive. Every detail of the planning was filled with care and joy. However, like any journey, there were moments of concern. During a routine checkup the doctor advised Clara to get additional rest due to a slight risk of complications. When Ethan heard this he became even more attentive, taking on many daily tasks to ensure Clara could relax. I don't want you to worry about anything except taking care of yourself and the baby, he said firmly but gently. Clara chuckled softly. You're spoiling me too much, Ethan. You deserve all the care in the world. Clara. The months flew by, and before they knew it the due date was near. On a calm evening, as a gentle breeze swayed the curtains, Clara went into labor. Ethan remained calm though his emotions were evident and quickly took her to the hospital. Hours later the sound of a baby's cry filled the delivery room, bringing indescribable joy to everyone's hearts. It was a boy, healthy and strong. Clara held the baby in her arms, overwhelmed with emotion, while Clara looked at them both with tears of happiness. Welcome to the family, my son, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. Lily and Luna, who had been waiting eagerly in the hallway, were brought in to meet their brother. They were delighted, promising to always care for and protect him. Life at Ethan's mansion felt complete. What once seemed like an unlikely family was now a shining example of love, unity and resilience. Each challenge had made them stronger, and the future seemed brighter than ever as Ethan cradled the baby in his arms and the twins played nearby. Clara felt she had finally found what she had always longed for, a home filled with love and people who would do anything for one another. What did you think of Ethan and Clara's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to follow all our stories and check out more heartwarming tales.